So one of my students recently wrote, she's applying to graduate school in art therapy, Elizabeth Nardoni. She wrote, "We can become so desensitized by the inundation of sound bites and the rapidity of images reporting horrific events that just barely register. Art is a remedy to desensitization. Art makes us feel, and just as the viewer can be moved by the art of beholding, the creator can be moved through the art of creating." So, in one of my classes, I asked students to make a CD of songs that inspire them to write. And they need to do liner notes, because if they do the liner notes, they not only know who made the songs and produced the songs, but they also see that the lyrics are poetry. Yeah. I learn so much about my students from the music that they put together, because that's a deeper register than words. I also am shameless, because they make me a copy. You know? It's the only way I can keep up. Because I steal. Once I learned how to do iTunes, I go through the CDs and I take and I make my own. But I say that because music is a window to people's psyches, to their deepest concerns. You know, as an academic, I was trained that anything below the neck did not matter. And when I finished A Promise and a Way of Life, which was a history of white anti-racist activism in the United States, I felt like I had lost all my body parts except for my head. And I wanted those parts back. I wanted my arms and my stomach and my legs and my heart. So at 42 years old, I decided I was 37. And I was going to start going up again. And every year from 37 forward, I was going to add something. So first I added the personal trainer, which, coming from a single mother where you don't even buy books, felt like this incredible luxury. But having someone actually pay attention to my body twice a week and start to say, "Becky, are you breathing?" You know? Because for trauma survivors, breath is not something we can take for granted. A long, long time ago, we stopped breathing. And breath is what attaches us to feeling. And feeling is what we need to have to be able to really love each other. So I started with Body by Brandy. Body by Brandy, Brandy Crutherd, is one of the 2 black women in the whole country who owns her own gym. And then the next year I added salsa. And now I should say, I come from a Mormon background. My great-great-grandfather had 9 wives. Those wives were each, quote, given a tract of land. That was native land. It also dawned on me recently, when the Mormon men had 9 wives, but they came across the country basically 1 man to 1 woman, how did they get those 9 wives? Those were native women. The genealogical records do not tell us that. So I was raised by Mormons, and Mormons are an ironing board culture, because it's not okay to dance or move, because women are dirty. Women are breeders. Right? Women should not be moving freely. So for me, it was an act of defiance to be doing salsa. And then I added yoga. And these things started to help me get that if I had to ransom off my body parts to be an academic, I don't want to do that to students. Because then what am I saying? If you are a survivor of the Holocaust or of incest, or you've been in prison, or you have witnessed the Abu Ghraib prison abuse, or you are anyway open, you cannot come in here with your feelings. I don't want to be part of that anymore. So that asked me to then bring my body into the classroom and try to make a space for other people's bodies as well. And that started with announcing to my students that I was no longer doing email. Yeah. You know, I got a letter from one of my employers, eventually. Because I have taught at 11 schools. That's a whole other story. But one of my former employers wrote me a letter about how I needed to use email because I was slowing down the culture there. And then I came to the University of Colorado. And it turns out that Chancellor Shockley, 8,000 students, going to move up to 20,000, so has to be pretty productive, refuses to use email. This is telling us something. Anyway, I tell the students at the beginning of the semester, I don't use email. And they freak out. And then they see, because I don't do email, I'm actually available. Because on Tuesdays, I'm there from when I get there until I leave, and my door is open. And a lot of other days too. So I have one-on-one, real live conversations with people. And oftentimes over good food, you know. Because I ask them to come see me. Because I still believe that a conversation with a human body has more meaning to it than when we're doing mediated communication through a screen. Inviting our bodies back into the classroom. You see, our bodies are our unconscious self. Our bodies are our unconscious self. The self that goes deeper than words. That's where the historical memory is. This is the realm that we need to be in communication with when we teach. So here's a story. I showed a film this semester called Broken Rainbow that I've been showing for about 20 years. This year, I was working with 4 teaching assistants. After the showing of the film, we always meet the teaching assistants before class for an hour, and then we teach together, and then we meet for a couple of hours afterwards. We came out, the 4 teaching assistants, Emily Tamayo, Filipina, Japanese descent, whose aunt was involuntarily sterilized, whose aunt has been exposed to uranium that has been dug up from Big Mountain. Crystal Rizzo, African-American and Southern Ute student who was adopted out of that reservation early. Luis Garcia, Mexican-American descent, comes across the border 3 times as a child with the steel gates gazing down on him. And Alvin Chi, from the Navajo reservation, whose father has worked for Peabody Coal for over 20 years. You can imagine, after watching Broken Rainbow, which is about the forced relocation of 10,000 Navajo and Hopi from the Four Corners region of the United States because of multinational and U.S. federal policy, we're a mess. So we cried together, stood there and sobbed for like 20 minutes, just wailed. And then those brave students picked themselves up and we went out and talked. This is the level of grieving that we need to be able to do in the classroom. Because this is the level of grief we are carrying around.